welcome back to my channel. I'm a little bit of a mess right now because I just got back from the cinema. I went to see the new Michael Myers movie, and if you don't know, I love scary movies. They don't scare me, I love them. That is my crack. And I kind of cried off some of my makeup. I'm surprised my eyelashes hanging on. But that is not the point of this video because I'm not a beauty guru. I'm not gonna teach you how to beat your face. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read last month. So in October I participated in spoopathon, which is a readathon hosted by Spoopy Hall here on BookTube. I absolutely love Holly. She's such a nice person, and I was just so excited. I was anticipating this readathon. Saying that, I don't think it panned out as well as I hoped for me. I didn't read a lot of books. I read 9 books, which to some people that might be a lot. But for me, I'm going through this weird thing where I'm having miniature reading slumps throughout the month. Instead of having like one long reading slump, I'm reading books, then I'm going into a slump, I'm reading books and going into a slump. All these little mini reading slumps. It's really annoying, much more annoying than just having one long reading slump. I would prefer that if I have to have reading slumps. So anyways, let's just get into the books that I read in October. Okay, so I was on team Spoop Shifters, which was Spoops' team. Our colour is pink. As of right now, we don't know who won the readathon, but we have been in the lead for quite some time now. So it's either going to be our team or Rose's team. Either way, I'm happy. I'm a team player. I didn't really feel very competitive this time round, but I did end up racking up a total of 1,675 points, and I read 9 books, and my total pages read is 3,013, which, if I sit here and think about reading 3,013 pages, I would go crazy. Just imagine a book that's 3,000 pages. I don't think I could do it. I can barely do 1,000 pages. I'm not enjoying long fantasy books that are like 500 to 600 pages. I prefer like the basic amount of pages. At this moment in time, I feel like it helps me read more to read shorter books. Going a bit off topic. So, okay. With my first time in the haunted house, the first book I read is The Project by Courtney Summers, and I absolutely fell in love with this. This book is quite Marmite according to the various reviews on different platforms, and I was quite surprised to fall into the category of love it, because usually with a book that's quite polarizing, I tend to hate them. But this one, I fell in love with it. It's absolutely amazing. This was my first time reading a book about cults. I discovered that I find cults very interesting. And in this one, our main character actually becomes part of a cult. So we see all the inside and how on the outside impressions can be very rose tinted, I guess is the right word. You know what I mean? Like the outside isn't what it seems. Something is more sinister within it. And I just thought that the way this book is written was very clever. It was very good. The ending did break my heart, but I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm not too sure what to say about it. It was the first book that I've read last month, and I read a few books since, so it's not very fresh in my brain, but hopefully I can sit down and digest it a little bit more. But it was really good. That was the most crap crap review of a book I've ever seen. But anyway, let's move on to the second book. Next, I read The Land of Stories by Chris Colfer. Number 1, it's called The Wishing Spell. It's called The Wishing Spell by Chris Colfer. These books, I feel like this is something that I would have really loved to read when I was a child, because I absolutely adored fairy tales and magic and being able to feel myself in a story. And this one follows kids that pretty much fall into a fairy tale world, fall into a fairy tale book. So it's magical and intriguing, and it didn't really feel boring, because usually, because I'm an adult, reading middle grades isn't my thing. It's not my thing. It usually feels too young, and it could be because I just adore Chris Colfer that I'm loving this book, and if it wasn't written by him, maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But I listened to the audiobook and he reads it himself. The voices that he uses are amazing. He's just so it was really immersive. There was this one scene where there's a wicked witch and he does the voice for her, and it's really creepy. And I feel like if this came out when I was a child and I listened to the audiobook when I was a child, I would have been scared. But he's an amazing man. I love him. People are probably fed up of me talking about Chris Colfer, but I don't feel like I ever will stop talking about him. So there you have it. I didn't actually rate this book because I have this thing where if it's not for me, I won't rate it. I'm not a child. I'm not an intended audience member for his book series. So I didn't end up rating it in the same way that I don't tend to rate non-fiction, because it feels like gaslighting to me. That's someone's real experience and I'm not gonna rate that. But we're going on a tangent. We're going on a tangent. I'm all over the place. Welcome to my channel. This happens a lot. It was a really cute read and I really enjoyed it. I then read Heartstopper Volume 1 because I just needed to read it again, obviously. I've reread this book so many times this year. It's kind of gross. But you know what Heartstopper is. I don't really need to talk about it. I read Heartstopper. It was still 5 stars. Absolutely love Nick and Charlie. Amazing book. Amazing graphic novel. That's all I have to say on that. And then I tried my first Junji Ito book. I read one of his short stories, which I think is featured in I really don't know how to say this word. Azumaki Volume 1, and the short story I read was The Jack in the Box. It wasn't what I expected. I feel like the imagery was very gory. It was very in your face, which I know it was a horror, but I just didn't expect that. I didn't feel scared, but it was just very graphic. I enjoyed it. I think it was a really cool, creepy story, and I may pick up more Junji Ito in the future. I gave this 3 stars. The reason for that is because it was just one short story, and I don't feel like I could rate a story that short 5 stars. Does that make any sense? It probably doesn't, but we're gonna go with it. Okay. I've been hyping this book up for a long time, but I finally got my hands on Cheer Up, Love and Pom-Poms by Crystal Fraser. I've talked about this quite a bit and I've recommended it to various people because I never see people talk about this. I received an arc of this from NetGalley a few months ago and I absolutely loved it. I read it in one sitting. It's absolutely beautiful. It's about this girl right here. She's plus size, she's very angsty, she has anger issues, and she gets forced to join a club because she's very antisocial, and her mum's worried about her not getting into college because of her being very, very antisocial. So she joins the cheer team and she rekindles a friendship with this girl, a trans girl. So this book is all about love and pom-poms, essentially. I can't say much about it because it is mega short and I'm not gonna give the whole book away, but I feel like it's quite up there with Heartstopper. It's an LGBTQ plus romance and it's 5 stars. I absolutely love it. I'm gonna give you a little preview. It is all in colour and it looks like a comic book rather than, you know, your classic graphic novel, and I really like that. I think it adds spice to the book. I love it. So this next book I've been anticipating for the longest time, and because I read the project, I decided it was time to add Sadie to my repertoire. This book was absolutely incredible. I decided to read this physically on the Sadie chapters because they are pretty long and audiobooks do tend to lose me quite quickly. But I listened to the podcast episodes through the audiobook because they literally sound like podcast episodes. They're very atmospheric. There is a whole cast. There's phone calls that actually sound like a phone call. There's scary music. It's the best audiobook that I have ever listened to. Audiobooks are so hard for me to concentrate on. I always end up DNFing a book through audio. It's just super hard to get into audiobooks for me, but this one was literally amazing. If you do end up picking up this book, I really recommend listening to the audiobook. Everyone recommends the audiobook for a reason. There is a reason people recommend that audiobook, and it is because of the full cast of characters and just how atmospheric and intense the story is. I feel like when you read a Courtney Summers book, you know you're reading a Courtney Summers book. Now, what I will say is that her characters are very similar in the sense that they are very complex and different, but at the same time you don't feel bored. Like, you know you're reading Courtney Summers because their characters are similar, but it's not boring. It's never boring. I need to read her whole backlist. I need to read every single book that she puts out because both of these books for me have been 5 stars and they've been added to my all-time favourites list. Just Courtney Summers run me over. I also feel like Courtney Summers writes familial trauma very well. A lot of her books do centre around family and sisters. Both The Project and Sadie have the family aspects with a lot of trauma in the family and the sisterly bond, and they are literally my favorite things to read about. So I'm here for this. So this next book I'm honestly unable to speak about without cursing and swearing. I don't know how to put into words how I feel about this book because it's that incredible and I want to do it justice. I just don't know how to speak about it. And that book is Ace of Spades by Farida Ebike Eyomide. I hope I said that right. If you do know how to say the author's name, then please let me know in the comments because that was my best shot. Anyway, this book was incredible. I was very shocked to find out that this is her debut novel. It does read like she's very established and has been writing books for a very long time. Her characters are so fleshed out, they're amazing, and she just has a very gripping writing style. She brings you right in and makes you not want to leave. Farida is a very talented author. With this book she managed to write a very compelling, interesting thriller whilst at the same time sending across a very strong heartfelt message about institutional racism. This book is very heavily based around racism that young Black people experience in schools and how society is essentially rigged against them. It's a very, very, very hard to read with some of these. You can just tell that she's drawn from her own experiences, and it's heartbreaking. I found the character of Chiamaka to be very, very complex. On one hand, you love her. You absolutely love her. You can't help but adore her and you want her to win. But at the same time, you can see that she's done something allegedly very, very bad. But you want her to win. That's all I have to say. You just want her to win. She's very complex, very, very lovable, but at the same time, she's an unlikable character. That's what makes her very real. I feel like trauma, which is shown through her character, is very well done. It's very hard hitting and it feels so, so realistic. I can't talk about this book. I can't. It's hard. It's so good. One of the moments that hit very, very hard for me was when she was talking about how white people perceive her hair. This book does go into a lot about how white people are obsessed with Black hair and the experience of that and the racism, and it's gross. I'm gonna read you a quote that just hit very hard, and I had to throw the book and be like, why does someone have to feel that way in this progressive society? Why are we still here? She says, I don't straighten my hair because I hate it. I straighten it because other people hate it for me. How shitty it must be to feel like that. And you know, as a white person, it made me really think about how privileged I am and how I've never had to kind of feel like that. I don't want to make it about me, but it really does make you think about what you can do better instead of adding to these experiences, even if it's unknowingly. And it's just Our other character POV is Devon. With Devon, I was kind of scared that I wouldn't like his character because I don't tend to like the quiet boy who just blends into the background. And what was really amazing about his character is he is the quiet gay guy. However, he is way more dimensional than that. There's not just one side to him. He feels so real. Like he was perfect on the experience that he had of being both Black and queer, and he was very, very self-aware of the fact of how that affects him and puts him down, but also how he can learn to love himself and love those things about him because they are lovable. Everybody's lovable, and these things that we think aren't good about us actually are. Just this society isn't progressive as it likes to call itself. To wrap this up, this book is so heartbreakingly realistic. You might be reading a fictional book because this is fictional. However, the experiences are very, very real, and it hurts. I also received this book from a lovely person that I interact with on Discord called Victoria. This was one of her favourite books of this year, and I'm so happy that she decided to gift it to me through my wish list. So if you are watching this, thank you so much for bringing this book into my life. I will reread it and it's beautiful. Thank you. The final book that I want to talk about, ironically, is, okay, it's a bit of a mess, but it's okay because it was 2 stars. That is Grady Hendrix, The Final Girl Support Group. I figured out that I really don't like the final girl trope. I'm not on that bandwagon of people that love final girls, because I don't. When I watch Scream, I root for Billy and Stu. I don't root for Sydney. I don't like Sydney. She's very annoying. I feel like final girls, whilst you're meant to root for them because they've gone through this really big trauma, and I'm not dismissing that, they can be really annoying, and I find the villain more interesting. It may be something wrong with my psyche, but there you have it. I enjoy the villain a lot more. I did enjoy the fact that Grady obviously talks about male violence against women, and he's not sat there saying not all men and just being part of the culture that promotes violence against women, that still allows it to happen. He's sat there and he's written a book where he's put forward this message as a man, being like, do you know what? Yes, male violence against women really is a problem. It is a problem. And I really appreciated that about this book. But what made this book fall flat for me was the unlikable characters. I feel like they're meant to be unlikable, so maybe that could go towards a higher review rating. But I was bored. I was so bored. I'm someone that has to connect with the characters and the story, and I didn't for this book. I didn't. Anyway, that is the end. This video is super long, so I am gonna end it here. But if you did enjoy my rambly October wrap up, then please do consider staying. Hit the bell. We can have a chat and a cup of coffee. You can have coffee. I will have hot chocolate because I don't like coffee. Hot coffee? I don't like coffee. I'm sorry. I don't. But yeah, that is the end of this video. I will see you on Sunday with a new one because I'm uploading more. Who is she?